And ultimately, the landscape will create rooms which will contain these elements. So you'll be going from a series of one landscape room to the next to experience something different in the park. So, but Frank Gehry said when we got Frank Gehry, it was, people wanted to be involved in the project then. And other artists and other planners. It was a Renzo Piano. We asked the Art Institute to since SOM had designed the pavilions in the garage across from the new addition to the Art Institute, I thought it was a good idea to get Renzo Piano to do them. So we asked the Art Institute if they would underwrite his design fee, which they said yes, so they could sort of control what was across the street. So we always looked for opportunities to sort of expand the goals. Yes, Lee.
I guess I don't have a question, Ed, but I'd like to make a commentary because as this project unfolded, I had randomly, circumstantially, a unique lens on it, either in the form of a conversation or a lecture, depending on the day. And first of all, I would say I think you've been, from what I understand, modest in your own role and the behind-the-scenes machinations of pulling this thing together, whether it be linking the community groups and the mayor and donors and the artists and so forth. That I've been told it doesn't happen without somebody like you making it happen, and as an operator, number one, and you should be recognized for that. Secondly, what I learned from this and watching and seeing it unfold is it just doesn't happen without leadership, and it doesn't happen without leadership really from two sectors, and it's private sector and it's from the elected officials owning the damn thing. Mm-hmm. If Mayor Daley doesn't own this, and he doesn't get in this case, John Bryan and his team to own it, it simply doesn't happen. It might happen as a $125 million, not that that's bad, a music pavilion. But the vision that emerged happened because there were a handful of people who were absolutely relentless. And and we have that opportunity on a couple of projects, and there's a handful of people, whether it be this man to my right or my colleagues in museums, as Doug and Thorns are up in the front row, we've been talking about and kicking about this thing, and it gets discouraging sometimes as we contemplate the opportunities that we have for public art or public spaces, and we're all operating various versions of public art and public spaces right now. And the circumstances are what they are here in Winston-Salem and in the economy, but we've got some opportunities before us, and we won't win them all, but I think private sector and public sector leadership and relentlessness will yield us something, whether it be our bridges or whether it be the museums that we're operating. We're getting ready to have a great living room for Winston-Salem here, and we've got to just sort of keep plugging away and not be afraid. And the press doesn't hassle us too much about it, do they? That's one guy. But this is a great example of what happens. And the money is one thing. I mean, you're talking about huge sums of money, and that's hard to come by, but we've got a lot of raw material to work with, a lot of energy, a lot of private and public energy here. And out of that will yield our version of things like this. So,
yeah, I think,
hang in there.
Yeah. I think the economic benefit was something that no one realized would be that significant. So there is a value in creating open space, and we think in Millennium Park the value, the value of square foot value of some of those residential high-rises went up $100 in 1 year.
And we're just learning how to talk about that here.
That's right, and I think that one of the things we're learning from other communities is that you need to get people outside of your profession to do some of the economic projections, because we are a special interest group, or the wine and cheese group, or the group that's arts and culture, and we're suspect. And so trying to get out into the real world of economic analysis and impact is something we've got to do next, I think. Because they don't believe believe us in our statistics.
Well, I don't think they believed our economic impacts too. They were done in 2005, 1 year after the park opened, so there wasn't a lot of track record to sort of make that judgment. But what they did was they had the baseline before the park opened, and they had the baseline a year after it opened. And what they did was go to all the hotels. They saw what the impact of the park was on room rental. They talked to the restaurants. They talked to everyone. So they interviewed everyone, and everyone to a person's, even 2 blocks off the park, were saying that the park had a huge impact on their businesses. So, and we figured about 9% of the people visiting the park are from international. I think it's 45% are from the region, and then Chicagoans make up the rest of it. So it's been a real draw for international. It's Chicago hasn't had that before. People wouldn't think of coming to Chicago to. And Millennium Park is sort of what they see, and when they get to Chicago, they find out there's a lot to do, a lot of great cultural programming and theater, and they buy in all the stores. They like to buy stuff and bring it back home. So we're happy about that. Any more questions? Yes.
What percent of volunteers make the park functional?
We have 2 areas of volunteerism. Mostly everyone's paid, but in the garden, there's 60 volunteers that either give tours of the garden or actually work in the garden. And there's a lot of interest in the garden. The other volunteers are what's called Chicago greeters, and they are usually retired folks who speak different languages, and you can call up and have one of them give you a free tour of anywhere in the city, but Millennium Park is one of their special places, in your language. So that's about all of the volunteer effort. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy it.